What if the Middle Ages weren't just brutal, but brilliantly brutal? Not chaos, but choreography. Not random cruelty, but handcrafted fear, engineered to break the body and rearrange the mind. We love to say wild animals kill without meaning. Humans, on the other hand, give suffering a meaning and then call it justice. Tonight we open the door to that cold workshop where iron meets imagination. Not to glorify pain, but to understand the people who built it, sold it, defended it, and watched it. Welcome to Flow of History, where terror had design, and design had purpose. Take a breath. You'll need it. If any of these makes your skin crawl, tell me which one in the comments. And if you think you'd keep your silence through all of them, let's test that confidence. Number 1. Rats. Rats don't need training. They are dread distilled into tiny feet and scratching sounds in the dark. That's why they were perfect. You can lock a person in a clean room, and they might still hold on to courage. Lock them in a damp cell below the waterline, and nature itself becomes a co-conspirator. Imagine the tide pushing brackish water into a stone chamber, leaving behind the stink of rot and the restless whisper of life. When the water slips back out, it doesn't leave alone. It leaves rats. Hungry, bold, and invisible in the dark. Fear does the first half of the work. Most people break long before teeth are involved. They sleep in jolts, every squeak a warning, every brush of air a phantom paw. The mind inventing the attack before it arrives. That's the secret. To make time itself the torturer. Give enough hours and the bravest will start talking just to hear another human voice. And then there's the calculated version, the one that reads like a cruel equation. A cage, a man, a handful of hungry rats, and heat. Press the cage against the body and introduce hot coals to the far end. The rats do not hate the prisoner. They simply hate heat more. In their panic, they run from fire to softness, and the prisoner understands that the system is working exactly as intended. The genius here isn't the metal, it's the logic. Panic plus instinct plus no exit equals obedience. Ask yourself honestly, which would crack you faster, the bite you can see, or the hours of listening to what you can't? Number 2. The Heretic's Fork. Some devices shout, this one whispers. 2 small sets of prongs connected by a bar, a leather strap to hold it all steady. One pair rests below the chin, the other presses into the breastbone. That is all. No gears, no pulleys, no spectacle. Yet it turns ordinary human behavior into punishment. Swallowing becomes a negotiation. Nodding becomes a mistake. Sleep becomes an enemy that waits for your head to fall and the points to teach you a lesson. This was not built to kill. It was built to reshape a person's daily movements until the victim's own body polices itself. That's why inquisitors liked it as an opening act. It didn't spill blood or draw crowds. It dissolved defiance a little at a time, like salt in water. Hours pass, muscles ache. The mouth dries because the throat refuses to risk a swallow. The eyes sting because blinking means the head wants to dip. The prisoner learns to hover in a tight posture, perfectly upright, perfectly obedient. You could think of it as a moral machine. Its lesson was cruelly simple. You will hold your tongue until we allow you to use it. No grand violence necessary. Just a steady, humiliating reminder that control can be as quiet as a strap and as sharp as a pair of small teeth. If you were forced to choose between a dramatic beating and a night in the fork, which would you pick? And do you think you'd still pick it after hour 4? Number 3. The Spanish Horse. They gave it a playful name. The wooden donkey, the Spanish horse. The joke is part of the cruelty. A horse is supposed to carry you. This one uses you as the load. The device is simple, a triangular beam or ridge, high enough that a human can be made to straddle it, weight focused on a single line. Legs are splayed to either side, sometimes tied, sometimes weighted. Minutes become hours. Hours become a negotiation with pain. What makes the horse so effective isn't blood or noise, it's gravity loyal. Relentless gravity turned against the body. Add weight to the ankles and gravity pulls harder, prod the victim to make them twitch, and every twitch becomes a fresh promise of agony. There is humiliation here, too. The posture is ridiculous, the exposure deliberate. Dignity leaks away faster than strength. The spectators don't need to see wounds. They only need to see a proud person reduced to begging for a change in position. In some variations, the ridge was deliberately narrow, sometimes even edged, forcing the body to redistribute weight by instinct. But there is nowhere safe to place it. Hands tied overhead turn balance into a trap. Any shift digs deeper into misery. It's a lesson in how architecture can control a human. All the torturer must do is wait and occasionally ask a question in a patient tone. Would you like to reconsider? We like to imagine medieval torture as a frenzy of spikes and flames. The horse reminds us the Middle Ages understood slow levers and pressure points just fine. You don't always need a dramatic instrument to create a dramatic outcome. Sometimes you just need time and a sharp edge. And if mercy is offered, it often arrives with strings attached. A confession here, a denunciation there, a name handed over like a coin tossed to buy a minute of relief. Picture yourself ordered to sit still and keep quiet. On a regular chair, you could do it forever. On this saddle, silence becomes a sentence measured in seconds. Tell me in the comments, would you start talking when the weights are added, or try to hold out until your legs shake on their own? Number 4. The Pear of Anguish. It looks almost innocent at first. A metal fruit that opens when you turn a key, petals widening from a tight bud to a cruel bloom. It acquired many names, and with each name came a new rumor about how it was used. For the mouth, for the rectum, for the very specific humiliations society reserves for the accused. Whether every claim is accurate or not, the lesson is the same. This was a tool for turning an orifice, the most private threshold of a person, into a site of domination. The pear wasn't about spectacle on a scaffold. It was about control in a room with a door that could be barred. Insert, turn, expand, wait. The pain is one part of it. The shame is another. Perhaps the worst part is the knowledge that someone stands there with a key and decides how far is far enough. There are ornate examples in collections, engraved, decorated, embellished. The ornamentation is its own confession. For some owners, power looked better when it glittered. There's a deeper cruelty at work here. The pear teaches that punishment can be intimate without being visible. A shock that leaves no stain on the clothes can still leave a mark that a person carries in silence for the rest of their life. That is why the device disturbs, even as a museum piece. It isn't only what it did, but what it says. We can hurt you where you live. In a society obsessed with honor, the threat of humiliation could be sharper than any blade. Sometimes the pear appears alongside the language of fitting punishment, the idea that the crime and the body part should rhyme. That arithmetic is chilling because it dresses cruelty up as fairness. But fairness has nothing to do with it. The real calculation is about power choosing the stage on which it wants to win. If shame is the most efficient weapon against someone, then shame it will be. Would you rather face the crowd and their judgment, or face the key and the quiet turn that no one will ever see? And if no one would ever know what happened behind that door except you and your keeper, would that make it better or worse? The water cure. Water should be a mercy. In these rooms, it wasn't. Forced hydration sounds almost harmless until you think about the body as a container with limits. A funnel, a hand to keep the mouth open, a nose pinched to force swallowing, and then volume. Too much of a good thing becomes a weapon. The stomach stretches, the chest heaves. The body begs for air but receives only more water, and panic becomes a constant hiss in the mind. There's another version with cloth, a wet barrier over the mouth and nose, while water is poured to simulate drowning. The liquid runs, the cloth clings, and the lungs go to war with a reflex that says, breathe now, and a reality that says, you cannot. The terror is not theatrical, it is primal. It takes the most basic rhythm we have, inhale, exhale, and turns it into a negotiation with someone holding a pitcher. The precision of the water cure made it tempting to interrogators. Used carefully, it could leave fewer marks than a whip, yet warp the soul more thoroughly. Survivors didn't just remember it, they relived it. Every time they coughed or choked on a sip. That's how you know a method was designed by people who understood the mind. The pain ends, the reactions remain. Sleeplessness follows in the weeks after, as if the body keeps rehearsing the worst minute of its life. It also played well in courts of fear. A confession extracted under the pressure of drowning panic could be paraded as the voice of truth, even when everyone secretly knew that drowning people promise anything. That hypocrisy is part of the machinery. Praise the confession's clarity, ignore the method's madness. The paper looks clean, the memory does not. Be honest. You can grit your teeth through a blow, but can you order your lungs to stop begging? Would you sign anything, say anything, promise anything just to breathe? If you're still saying no, you've never truly felt your own body betray you for air. The intestinal crank. Some punishments pretend to be reversible until the last moment. This one never lied. Once it began, it promised only one ending. Accounts describe a restrained body, an opening made by skilled or unskilled hands, and a mechanism to draw out what should remain inside. It was not fast, it was not kind, it was final. This method did several things at once. It killed, of course, but it also broadcast a message about power. It said, "We can reach into you and take away what keeps you alive, and we can make you watch our decision." That is sovereignty expressed in metal and motion. The crank is less about engineering and more about authority's desire to make the private public and the inevitable slow. The cruelty here is cumulative. First comes restraint, which steals the illusion of choice. Then exposure, which erodes dignity. Then time, which stretches each second into a separate punishment. Even spectators change during such a scene. They start as witnesses and end as participants, because staying to the end makes you part of the performance whether you touch the handle or not. That moral gravity is heavy. That was the point. It's tempting to turn away from even thinking about it, yet there's value in looking long enough to see the structure. That structure is control plus exposure plus time. Control keeps the victim still. Exposure strips dignity. Time teaches everyone in the room that resistance has a cost measured in minutes, not just pain. If rumor alone could make suspects talk, imagine what the presence of the actual device did to a wavering will. Would the threat of this end make you talk at the very beginning? That was the calculation. Start with the whisper of the crank and end with a confession before a hand even turns a handle. If fear can do the job, the machine can stay clean. A victory for the torturer's schedule and a defeat for the human spirit. Across these devices and methods, a pattern emerges. Medieval torture was not a random storm of agony. It was a set of learned behaviors and repeatable tools that turned fear into policy. Some were loud and public, meant to pull a crowd into complicity. Others were private and quiet, designed to rot courage in small, steady bites. Each one exploited something instinctive: fear of animals, fear of humiliation, fear of suffocation, fear of slow time. There's also a pattern in the people who used them. They weren't always monsters in the cinematic sense. Many were clerks with keys, guards with routines, craftsmen who cast iron, officials who wrote rules. Ordinary hands, extraordinary harm. That might be the darkest lesson of all. Cruelty doesn't always wear a villain's mask. Sometimes it wears a uniform. Sometimes it wears a smile. Sometimes it wears the confidence of being on the right side. We like to put barbed wire around the past and say, that was then. But the human mind that designed these instruments still beats in our chests. The urge to punish, to control, to compel speech, to make an example. None of that evaporated with the last candle in a medieval dungeon. Tools change. Intentions linger. Understanding these devices isn't morbid curiosity. It's a warning label attached to our own species. Which one of these would have broken you first, and why? Say it out loud. It's not a weakness to admit what scares you. It might even be a kind of strength. If this journey into the iron logic of medieval punishment taught you something about fear, about power, or about yourself, stay with us. We tell history the way it breathes, slow, fast, and full of uncomfortable truth. I'm glad you walked through the shadows and came back. For more deep dives that challenge what you think you know about the past, hit subscribe to Flow of History. Tap like if you made it to the end, share this with the bravest person you know, and ring the bell so you never miss the next descent. Until then, remember, the worst weapons are not the ones in our hands, but the ones we justify in our minds.